What am I afraid of trying? There comes a time in a man's life, especially when he has lived long enough to watch seasons change more times than he can count, when he sits quietly with himself and asks, not what he has done, but what he didn't do, what he feared to attempt, what risks he walked away from, what dreams he quietly buried beneath the weight of doubt. And so the question echoes gently now in the twilight of my years. What am I afraid of trying? Fear, my dear friend, is a curious companion. It whispers in your ear when no one else is listening. It wraps itself in rationality and responsibility, making you believe it's wisdom, speaking when, in truth, it is cowardice dressed in Sunday clothes. I have known that voice well, and I have seen what happens when it is obeyed. The Bible, ever so honest about the human condition, speaks often of fear. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, Paul wrote to Timothy, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. Fear is not the gift of God. Courage is. And yet, how often we live not by the power given to us, but by the fears we inherited. Fears of failure, of rejection, of looking foolish, of losing what little we think we have. I remember as a young man being offered an opportunity to speak publicly at church. I was terrified. What if I stammered? What if I forgot my verse? I declined, and I regretted it for years. But I also remember the day I finally did stand up, heart pounding, hands trembling, and spoke. I don't recall exactly what I said, but I remember the feeling. I had confronted something I feared, and it didn't kill me. It changed me. Modern psychology affirms what Scripture already told us, that avoidance breeds anxiety. The more we retreat from the things we fear, the more those fears grow. The brain, through a process known as neuroplasticity, learns to associate certain actions or inactions with safety. But this is a false safety, a cage built of comfort, and every time we choose not to try, we reinforce that cage. Neuroscience tells us that fear activates the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for detecting threats. When overstimulated, it triggers the fight or flight response, often before our rational brain has a chance to weigh in. But here's the good news. When we face our fears head-on, repeatedly, and with purpose, our brain learns that the threat isn't dangerous after all. This is exposure therapy. It is also spiritually a form of sanctification, a cleansing of the soul from timidity. You see, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is doing the thing afraid. It is choosing to step forward, even if your knees are knocking. Moses, the great leader of Israel, didn't want the task given to him. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" he asked. Exodus 3:11. But God didn't pick him because he was fearless. He chose him because he knew he could use him. I have come to believe that the things we are most afraid of trying are often the very things that would shape us most. The enemy of our soul knows this. He aims to paralyze us, not with grand temptations, but with whispers of doubt. "What if you fail?" he hisses. But failure, I've learned, is not the worst thing. A hardened heart, untouched by obedience, that is far worse. I once feared being a poor husband, so I delayed marriage. I feared I wouldn't make enough money, so I chose jobs that were safe, but soul-draining. I feared writing down my thoughts, fearing judgment, so I kept them to myself. And for every one of these fears, I can tell you, when I pushed through them, blessings followed, not always immediately, not always visibly, but always certainly. And yet, even now at long years of age, I must confess, there are still things I'm afraid to try. I'm afraid to open up completely to my grandchildren about my regrets. I fear sharing the full truth of my failings with my closest friends. Vulnerability does not get easier with age, but it does become more urgent. The clock teaches you what the heart resists. You don't have forever. When we live in fear, We deny ourselves growth. God designed us for transformation. Romans 12:2 instructs us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Transformation comes through action, not avoidance. Through stepping out, not stepping back. What have I learned? From the things I feared and tried anyway. That God meets you not in the safety of the harbor, but in the waves of the unknown. That the Spirit empowers those who move, not those who merely wish. That the risks we take in faith, even if we stumble, build resilience, wisdom, and testimony. Research backs this up. Studies from behavioral science show that people who take calculated risks, especially in areas tied to personal growth, tend to report higher life satisfaction, stronger relationships, and deeper fulfillment. This is not merely anecdotal, it is empirical. And it affirms what Jesus said in Matthew 25, in the parable of the talents, "Those who invest what they are given, even at risk, are the ones commended. Those who bury their talent out of fear, they lose it." So what are we afraid of trying? Is it starting that ministry God placed on our hearts? Is it reconciling with a long estranged loved one? Is it changing careers, writing the book, adopting the child, forgiving the offense? Every one of these fears can be redeemed when brought into the light of God's truth. And let us not forget that failure is not the end. It is often the beginning. Peter failed. He denied Jesus 3 times. But Jesus restored him and used him to lead the early church. Failure, when surrendered to God, becomes fertilizer for future fruit. My dear friend, I urge you to name your fear. Speak it aloud. Write it down. Bring it before the Lord. Ask Him if it is a boundary or a barrier. Not all fears are to be conquered. Some are divine restraints, but most, if we are honest, are just excuses, disguised as prudence, wrapped in religion, but devoid of trust. You were not made for a timid life. You were made in the image of a God who created galaxies, parted seas, and defeated death. That same power dwells in you if you belong to Christ. Romans 8:11. So why do we tiptoe through life as if failure is fatal? Let me tell you a secret from someone who has watched too many friends die with music still in their hearts. Regret does not come from what we tried and failed. It comes from what we never dared attempt. The what-ifs echo louder than the failures, and they are harder to silence. In my younger years, I met a man named Arthur. Brilliant fellow, full of ideas. He dreamed of becoming a teacher, but spent 40 years as a banker. Too risky, he used to say. When he retired, he tried volunteering at a school. And oh, how he shone. The children loved him. But he often told me with tears in his eyes, "I wish I had started sooner." Don't wait until your knees are old to kneel at the altar of courage. Faith is risky business. Hebrews 11. The Great Hall of Faith lists men and women who risked everything, reputation, comfort, safety, because they trusted God more than their fears. They were commended, not because they played it safe, but because they stepped out. So I ask you now, as one who has crossed the bridge of youth into the long valley of wisdom, what are you afraid of trying? And more importantly, why? Is your fear rooted in truth or in a lie? Does it protect you or does it confine you? Let the Spirit examine your heart. Invite others to speak into your life. Surround yourself with encouragers, not enablers. Be willing to look foolish for the sake of obedience. For it is better to fail in faith than succeed in fear. And if you do try and fail, know this: you will rise again. Proverbs 24:16 says, "Though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again." You are not defined by your stumbles, but by your willingness to get up again and again So then, my beloved reader, walk forward, not recklessly, but faithfully. Take the first step. Speak the first word. Begin the journey. Let fear tremble at your courage, not the other way around. For in the trying, we discover strength. In the risking, we uncover purpose. And in the obedience, we meet God, not just as a theory, but as a present help in time of need. You were made to move mountains, not tiptoe around them.